So, hi, folks. I'm back once again, and this is part two of the interview with the legendary Richard Inman, who's just changed his lighting there to make him look even more fabulous.
I'm just trying to make myself a little less pasty looking, Liam. That's one of the drawbacks of living in Northern Ireland. All these guys that go out and live in Spain and get the healthy tans. Unfortunately, I'm stuck in a rock in the middle of the North Atlantic. An accident of geography, but there we go. How are
Well,
you, mate?
so last week, we talked about you, Richard, which you're not used to doing. So we
No,
talked.
I didn't feel comfortable. I must admit, I didn't feel comfortable. But I think I kind of grew into it, But it's just trying to. One of the problems is, Liam, it's trying to remember that far back. We're talking more than a quarter of a century ago.
And now what's happening, folks, is he's calling me up every day saying I've got to talk about myself even more, and so it's becoming an issue. But
Liam, there's plenty of people think I'm narcissistic. Don't feed that fantasy for them any more than it's fed.
So we talked about your upbringing in tough upbringing in Middlesbrough, and we also talked about your army life and surviving bullets, bombs, everything else like that. And then we kind of left it at that point. And in today's program, what I want to do is talk more about your life. So, kind of what happened to you when you left the army?
Yeah, okay. So I left the army when I was 24 years old. I'd done seven years, and it was really to kind of it was for family reasons. I mean, my wife and my daughter were living back here in Northern Ireland, and it wasn't good for me being on my own without my family. It's as simple as that. It's the army's great if you're single. Um, or your wife kind of likes that sort of lifestyle, but it's not for every woman. It's as simple as that. And I don't blame women not liking that lifestyle because the husbands are away a lot. It's lonely. They're sort of dragged away from friends and family into a very strange environment. And that's all right when you're a soldier, but for a young woman, it's not. And a lot of army marriages break up.
Mhm.
And I didn't want my marriage breaking up at all, and there wasn't any chance of that. But I didn't want to put my wife through something that I knew she never said to me,
Mhm.
"I want to go home," but I just knew she wasn't happy with the army life. So I was like, "Do you know what? We'll buy a house. I'll do my army stuff. I'll come home once every 3 or 4 months, and we'll see how that goes." And for me, that's when I got into a little bit of bother in the army because it didn't really work for me because I think, like I said last time, I started drinking a bit, and to kind of to get over that sort of loneliness. And again, I wasn't running around chasing women, so I just drank a bit and fought a bit, and that wasn't good for an army career. So that's how that chapter kind of closed.
Did you
So
did
that
you
then
have problems? Did you have problems readjusting to life?
Oh, do you know what, Liam? I was talking to a veteran today, and this guy he joined at the same time as me. He did 24 years, and I did 7 years. So he kept his nose clean. And he was good. He was a good lad. But I was talking to mate Marty today, and he was in dog handler and bomb disposal dogs and all that sort of stuff. And he was saying, he still misses it, and I'm saying, look, it's what 1992. I think I left the military, and I still miss it.
Really?
Because it's just the best life. It is, if you're fit, if you're strong, if you've got a bit of aggression, it's just a brilliant, brilliant life. And yeah, I missed it. I missed it from the day and hour I got out. But then, I mean, if we could really fast forward, we'll fast forward a lot because
Mm.
when I got involved in the movement, I found that same sense of purpose,
Mm.
right? That I've been looking for since I left the military. Because again, it's I believe we're fighting for our country, we're fighting for our country's survival. And I said to Martin today, I said, Martin, do you know what? What we're doing now is I'm not in any way dishing my service and what I did in Northern Ireland and all that sort of stuff, or anybody else's service that did operations. But what we're doing now is actually more important.
Yeah.
And one, it's peaceful, and you shouldn't get shot or murdered or blown up doing this yet. you know.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
so the
What did
reality.
you do though? Did you do like odd jobs? Did you go into different professions? What did you do?
No, what I did, because I've always been a pretty good talker. So I
Yeah.
thought, well, I could work really hard and get my hands dirty and go and because when I left school, I worked on a building site for a couple of years. I was starting an apprenticeship as a joiner when I joined the military, and I thought, well, I could go back to that. I thought that's hard work. You know, I've seen these guys; they graft. They're really putting their hand to the plow. So I thought I can talk. I'm going to do sales. So I started doing sales. I started doing double glazing sales,
Yeah.
advertising sales, marketing, all that sort of stuff. And I found it pretty easy talking to people and asking them for money. And that's really all you got to do in sales is be nice, smile, talk to people, and then say, "Give me your money." And that's,
How
that's
was that for you from having bombs and bullets on the streets and all that to become a salesman? That must have been kind of a weird adjustment to do that.
well, I mean, the interesting thing about sales that people don't understand, it takes an incredible amount of balls to be a good salesman
Yeah.
because you've got to be to make good money at it. I mean, you can be average, but to make good money at it, you've got to be going, going, going. You've got to be always be reading what people are thinking, reading what people are saying. You've got to be a little bit manipulative. That's really what sales is about, is understanding what people want and giving them what they want. And and again, it's an art, it's a skill. Can you learn it? Possibly, possibly, but a lot. It's very different now because obviously with the internet and stuff, there's a lot more. There's a lot more stuff going on. But that back then, it was either on the phone or face to face, and I enjoyed it. And I made decent enough money. I was doing all right. I was because obviously the military never pays fantastically well. I mean, the soldiers are ridiculously underpaid. That's one of the problems. And I went from getting a pretty. Actually, I could rewind just a little bit because when I was in the military, one of the things I did as a sideline, I sold sports gear and sweets and Coke, not that sort of Coke. I might add, Coca-Cola, Coke,
Yeah.
sweets and Coke to the soldiers, and sports gear and tracksuits and trainers and all that sort of stuff. So I already started doing that before I left. So if I worked out, at one point I was earning as much as a regimental sergeant major as a lance corporal. Which is quite funny. I'm walking around with a big jacket on with wrestler's neck of £20 notes in my pocket. So I'd got into the sales thing, really enjoyed it. And again, I mean, sales is psychologically, it can be very, very difficult because if you're in a position where you're doing really, really well, you're on top of the world. If you're going through a bit of a drought, psychologically, far harder than the military,
Yeah.
far harder than the military psychologically, without a shadow of doubt. Don't get me wrong. If you get shot at, you get bombed. If your mates get killed, if you see something gruesome, that sticks with you, and that's where people get PTSD and all that sort of thing from. But the sales thing was easy. One of the problems I had, Liam, I'm trying to talk really fast because I'm aware of your time.
No,
One of
no.
the issues I had when I came out of the military in Northern Ireland, it was 1992. We were still at the height of the troubles. In fact, in a way, the troubles were getting worse. We had the Shankill Road bomb. We had, the retaliations for that. There was, the Loyalists and the Republicans were really going at it. So it was a very, very tense time. Now, me, dropped in from the military into an environment where if the IRA knew you were ex-military back in those days, they would kill you if they had the opportunity. There's certain places I just couldn't go and work. I couldn't have gone and worked in West Belfast.
Yeah.
Couldn't have gone worked in South Armagh and in Newry. In fact, there were some jobs I even went for interviews, realized it was an IRA stronghold, and I wouldn't go to the job. I just wouldn't do it. So, and then as I kind of broadened my horizons, I had to go and work in those areas. And that was very, very nerve-wracking, working in areas where if people sussed out what your background was, they would have taken action against you, or they could have taken action. And it did happen.
You don't get any of that today.
No, but it could bubble up at any time. It's one of those things. It could. I don't think it will because there's too much at stake for the major players. But back in the 90s to probably the early 2000s, that was quite a stressful, because you had to lie about what you did.
Yeah.
So every day somebody would say to me, "Oh, what are you doing here?" "Oh, do you know what it was? I was at university in England. I met this lovely Northern Irish girl." I mean, how people even thought I'd ever been to university, that's another point. But I was at whatever it was, whatever the lie was that day, I just used to have to lie to people because it was self-preservation. So people asked, "What did you do for a living?" "Oh, I was a joiner, and then I started getting into doing double glazing sales because I enjoy it." So all that sort of stuff. Even at one point I was doing debt collecting, and I was actually debt collecting in IRA pubs in Belfast.
Whoa,
as an
that's
ex-soldier.
heavy. That's heavy.
Well, the thing about when I say debt collecting, it was just small bills. It wasn't like I was going in,
Yeah.
strong arming people. I was just going, you owe this company this amount of money, can you pay? So it's not like, I wasn't an enforcer. I was just asking for money. But so I was going into IRA strongholds, into IRA pubs with an English accent and asking the guys that were obviously connected with the IRA for money.
That's not easy. That takes a brave man, Richard.
Well, do you know what? Do you know that the way I played it, Liam? I just played the dumb Englishman, right? So if they started asking me loads of questions that were obviously leading questions, I would just be, "Guys, I'm just living here, I'm just married. What you guys do in all your, in your spare time's up to you. I don't want to know about it. But what the other thing I found was what was really useful to do was make a lot of friends.
Mm-hmm.
So if you remember last time we were chatting, I was in punch-ups a lot when I was in the army, and before I joined the army, it was just that was the sort of lifestyle that it was back then. It was quite, volatile. But what I learned very quickly in Northern Ireland, it doesn't work like that in Northern Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
If you start throwing your weight about, you're going to have 10 men coming through your door and saying, son, you're an Englishman. You're not going to come over here and start throwing your weight about. Mm-hmm. So what I learned was how to make friends very quickly and how to build friendly relationships very quickly. And people from loyalists to Republicans, I've got friends that were in the IRA. I've got friends that were in the UVF, to me, in many ways, they're very much the same as soldiers, right? That they're, we all have that sort of mentality and that dark humor and so on and so forth. Now, I don't judge people by what they've done. Mm-hmm. I judge people by how I find them, right? Yeah. And I think, but I just made sure I made friends with lots of different people from lots of different backgrounds. Did I tell all of them what I used to do? No, not in the early days. Now pretty much everyone knows what I used to do. But again, so that was you were almost kind of having to live a complete lie the whole time because it was too dangerous to tell the truth about what you did. And that was frustrating because I was proud of what I did in the army, but I couldn't tell people about it.
Were you pleased that you left, or do you regret leaving early?
That's a deep question because both. Mm. I mean, I think what's one of the things that helped me come to terms with leaving, and it's almost like going through a relationship breakup or something like that, because you're leaving all your friends, you're leaving something that you love doing. But one of the things now, I mean, it took me a long time. I mean, I'd go through some quite sort of hard times, mentally, because you've been taken out of that real safety net environment where, you're kind of, especially once you've been in the military for about 3 or 4 years, you can do what you want pretty much. It's not like you're constantly getting bossed about and told to do this and this. Once you've been in a while and you've got a bit of respect, you're one of the lads, and but when you come out, you're just nobody. You're just a little guy that's trying to make a living and running around, with a funny English accent, surrounded by people that go, "Oh, you're English. What brought you here?" And they did ask, and all those sorts. So from that point of view, yes, there was a bit of regret for leaving, but the good side of it was I was spending a lot more time with my family, with my wife, and it was I had two lovely kids, and lovely wife, and it was a really nice life, and I wasn't having all the hassle of having to go away and deploy and this, that, and the other. We could go where we wanted, we could go on holiday where we wanted, and so on and so forth. So I was kind of torn. I was definitely torn on that.
So what was the point? What was the point that you suddenly decided to throw yourself in and become this firebrand orator, speaker? I mean,
right, okay. Well, this is where everything takes a turn, and this is weird. Well, it's not weird to me, but to a lot of people listening, they won't really get this. If you look behind me, there's a bookcase there full of books about Christianity, right?
Right.
That's what that bookcase is. It's just all, commentaries on Bibles and theology and blah, blah, all that sort of stuff. So when I was 28, again, there was, we talked last time a bit about PTSD. When I was in my sort of mid-20s, and it might have been even because of the environment I was living in, because I was constantly sort of on edge, because I was an ex-soldier, and I was in the back of my mind was all the time, I've got to be careful what I'm saying. I checked under my car for bombs for 30 years, like just every day under the car, see if there's anything under there, because they used to put up and unders, devices under your cars, and it's like my mate said, you only have to not check once, and and again, I was a low value target because I was out and so on and so forth. But you drill yourself into that sort of thing. So I would have had a sort of recurring nightmare, on a regular basis, where I was kind of in a Republican area of Belfast. I was on my own, or there was somebody coming into the house, or and I'd have woken up and I'd been running around the house, and my wife would have been jumping out of bed, grabbing hold of me, calming me down, saying, "No, you're having a nightmare again. Just go back to bed. Everything's okay." So there was almost certainly some sort of PTSD there. But putting all that aside, I had a religious experience when I was 28 years old, and as clear as I can see that bookcase behind me. And I didn't do drugs. I wasn't never been into drugs. I wasn't really even drinking then. and I saw a man being crucified. Right, I was lying in bed, and I was like, "What's going on here? Am I hallucinating?" And it happened to me 3 times. Saw this man being crucified, and that had a deep impact on me. So that started me on a search, and I started going talking to vicars and priests, and well, not priests, because obviously I was from a Protestant side. You wouldn't go and talk to the priests in Northern Ireland in the 1990s.
Yeah.
But I was, meeting vicars and ministers and pastors and so on and so forth. And I became a Christian when I was 28, and I lived a very devout Christian life for, well, until the start of this craziness, to be honest with you, until sort of 2017. And one of the things I did was preach. So that's where the oratory comes from. So I would have.
What's the point where do you remember the first time that you got up and actually did a speech? That must have been kind of a weird thing to do.
I don't. I can't. There was that many. I mean, you mean in the movement or
as a preacher or something?
I don't remember it. I honestly don't remember. I'm guessing it wasn't long after I became a Christian. What we used to do, I mean, we were these crazy people. We were like, I don't do things by halves, Liam. So,
Were you knocking on doors?
No, I wouldn't. No, that's Jehovah's Witnesses. We weren't quite that bad. No, but we used to go on the streets at night and like, talk to people about Christianity, and then we started doing a bit of street preaching on the street corners, and people just looking at it like you're completely mad. But it's weird because it has an effect on you when you're doing it, because you're reading the Word of God, and you're declaring the Word of God, and it does have an effect on the people that go past. And I know when I've been kind of straying, let's say, from the true path, if I bump into some Christians, it doesn't have to make me feel bad. You know what I mean? In a good way. So I kind of started doing all that, and then I started preaching in churches, and I just got used to public speaking. So I was doing sales, I was preaching, which is where the public speaks. So when it comes to communicating with people, I don't get shy, I don't get embarrassed. I've got plenty of other things that I am.
Sorry to interrupt. When you're going on in a big rally, and I've seen you in some big rallies, do you have any nerves when you step forward?
No, never.
Really?
No, not at all. I just enjoy it. I just get
50,000, 100,000 people. I've seen you on massive rallies standing up.
It doesn't matter whether it's 10 people or 100. In fact, in some ways, a bigger crowd's better.
Yeah.
Because you get more of a buzz and more of a vibe. I mean, one of the hardest things is preaching in a church full of little old ladies of both sexes, and you start preaching, and half of them are falling asleep, and the other half are sort of growling at you like that. So, so speaking to the crowds that we speak to, it's fine. I mean, it's just I call it my superpower. It's just a God-given gift that that's kind of been honed over the years, and it's just a little neat. I must admit, if I'm not invited to speak, I get highly offended.
Oh, do you? Yeah.
Oh yeah. And Tommy knows that as well. So what Tommy does, right, just to wind me up, he'll not even say you're speaking, Richard, and I'll be standing there like that, and I'll be listening to speak. I'm thinking he's rubbish. I know it's really arrogant, and I'm like, oh, come on, is that the best you got? And then Tommy go, right, Richard, it's your turn, to hand me the mic, and a big smile will come on the face. So I know that's the ego, I know it's narcissistic, but I'm just being honest about what I'm like.
Fair enough. So, do you pre-plan any of these speeches? I mean, have you got
I kind of, yes. I kind of, what I'll do, I'll think about what I'm going to say, and I'll kind of practice them. I used to write scripts. When I first started, I used to write scripts. But what I try and do now, I try and have some basic ideas and just see how it flows from there, and see, and almost, gauge by, because obviously you want the audience to be entertained as well. And you want, at the end of the day, people are paying a lot of money to come and see what is really, in many ways, it's a performance art from all sorts of different people, from the musicians, from Tommy, from the other speakers. So what you don't want to do is drone on for 20 minutes in a monotone voice from a phone, looking down over a phone. You want to try and, let people really get the vibe of what you're doing, and make everything. This is what I did learn from preaching. There's an old preacher called Spurgeon back in the 1800s, and he's a Baptist preacher in London. And he said, you've got to preach as if so it could be understood by an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old.
Mm.
So, so you make the speech not to simplify or to think of people as stupid. That's not what I mean by that at all. But just so it's simple enough that people can take something away from what you're saying
Mhm.
and understand what you're saying and why you're saying it in that specific way. And I think, again, you've got to be careful, because obviously it's very easy to get inflammatory when if there's something bad happened. It's very easy to really, sort of stir people up, and it's getting that balance between giving people enthusiasm and stirring them. And sometimes you get it wrong, and especially in this climate, it's very dangerous, because if you get
Yeah.
it wrong, the way
Well,
things are now, they'll
yeah.
just bang you up. You know what I mean?
You get
So
irritated if you're on the bill with other people and you can see that they're losing the crowd. Do you get?
yeah,
Yeah.
I do actually. I do. I must admit, I do. I do. I can tell within about a minute or two,
Yeah.
how the thing's going for them. And look, not everybody's got this ability to do it. And I mean, I'm lacking in so many other abilities. I'd love to be musical. I'd love to be able to sing.
Yeah.
I'd love to look like Brad Pitt. I mean, but like, this is my thing that I can do. And again, there may be a time when I can't do it. Who knows? I mean, it's like anything. So,
But what
but
what
I do enjoy it, and I think it's if I can help people understand very complex issues in very simple terms, so that they can understand that we've got a plan and we know what we're doing, and we can get this country out of the mess that we're in.
Mhm.
That's really, what it's all about, is basically helping people and encouraging people and getting people fired up with that enthusiasm, not to do anything stupid, but go, do you know what? If he can do that, I can do this. If he can do that, well, I can join the political party, or I can sign the pledge, or whatever it is that the direction that we're going in. And I think, Liam, the other thing is we've done really well with planning stuff. Now, not all the plans have worked, but I think we've now got a fairly good idea of where we're going and what we're trying to do.
Mhm.
Well, I've got a very good idea of what I'm trying to do. I just hope everybody else is on the same page as me. But yeah.